The Philadelphia Eagles are set to play the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 57 after beating the Giants and 49ers in the divisional round and NFC Championship game during the playoffs. They are a very talented football team, which would be an understatement, but how exactly did they get here? In today's video, we're going to break everything down, and it goes back several years. Believe it or not, there was a point in time where people were gunning for General Manager Howie Roseman's job, but those days are far behind us. To get to where the Eagles are now, well, there's been a lot of uncomfortable conversations, uncomfortable decisions in order to get to where they are, which is the chance to win a Super Bowl. And the Philadelphia Eagles are the exact way to build an NFL team. And there's a lot to dive into in today's video, and without further ado, let's begin. And we are starting today's video by looking at one of their biggest strengths, and it is without a doubt the offensive line. The Eagles led the NFL in rushing touchdowns by not just 1 or 2, but by 8 touchdowns. And to give you an idea of how much of an astronomical difference between the first and second place team, it is far and away the biggest gap between the first and second team in rushing touchdowns in the past 10 years. The team that came closest to this was the 2017 Saints when they had a dynamic duo at running back of veteran Mark Ingram and a rookie running back who you might know by the name of Alvin Kamara. Philly rushing for 32 touchdowns in the 2022 regular season and adding 7 more in the first 2 games of the postseason is also the most in NFL history. The 1962 Packers had 37, and this statistic shows just how much of a pain in the ass it is to play the Eagles. There are several games this year that show this, but there's 2 that I really want to keen in on. Full disclosure, I am a Vikings fan, and I am pretty open about that, but when my team went to Philly back in week 2, I thought the Vikings were going to lose as I did not think we matched up well in the trenches. Forget the Kirk Cousins on Monday night in primetime and all of that. The Eagles' offensive line kicked the Vikings' defensive line's ass, and it was true on the other side of the football as well. We will get into their defensive line later in the video, but when you run the ball 34 times for 163 yards as a team, while still having Jalen Hurts throw for 333 yards, you're going to win 99% of those games. And at that point, because of how physical they were and how dominant their offensive line was, I thought they were a Super Bowl caliber team. The other game, and there's plenty we can choose from, but the other game that really showed their dominance was the divisional round against the Giants. When you can beat a team down physically and wear them down mentally, you're going to get a result like 38-7 in the playoffs, and that's exactly what Philly did. They ran the ball 44 times for 268 yards, and the Giants had no chance of stopping this team. Kenneth Gainwell ran the ball 12 times for 112 yards, and this game showed when your offensive line is both dominant and clicking, there's not a lot the other team can do other than hope they make a mistake or a running back coughs up the football. And the Eagles having a dominant offensive line is not the only reason why they are the way to build an NFL team. They have done a phenomenal job of matching players' skill sets with teammates that complement one another. When Jalen Hurts is in the pocket and is on a roll, as cliche as this sounds, you know. He is a damn good quarterback, and I don't think it's a coincidence he had the best year of his career this year. His success is both a product of his hard work and talent as a football player, and Howie Roseman putting the pieces around him he needs in order to succeed. And defenses also hate playing him because it's not enough he can throw for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns and win. He can also beat you with his legs, which is very annoying for defenses to have to game plan around. Jalen ran for over 750 yards in 2022 and an additional 13 touchdowns and has 23 rushing touchdowns over the past 2 years. This team truly has no weaknesses, and what I think is the most annoying part when playing the Eagles, at least watching my team get their ass kicked back in week 2 for me, was knowing there's nothing you can do to stop it. It's no coincidence they put up 69 points, nice, combined during their 2 playoff wins over the Giants and 49ers. Sure, the 49ers having little to no quarterback play certainly helped Philly, but I want this to be clear. I don't think the result of this game was going to change. The game would have been a lot closer, but I don't think the Eagles were going to lose the NFC Championship game at home. They are not a one-dimensional team, and that also goes into why they are such a great model of how to construct an NFL team. And when building an NFL roster, at some point you're more than likely going to have to take a risk and trade a first-round pick for a player. We've seen it with several franchises, and it's worked out extremely well in some cases, and in others, not so well. The Chiefs did that with Patrick Mahomes as they made the jump from pick 27 to pick 10 back in 2017, and nobody questions it. It's almost forgotten because of how much of a return they have on Mahomes. Other teams have as well when looking to take the next step, and I think the trade that is closest to the Eagles in this regard is the Stefon Diggs trade. Entering 2020, the Bills had a quarterback who made some strides in year 2 and was looking to take the next step. Josh Allen more than took that step in 2020, and Stefon Diggs ended up leading the NFL in both receptions and receiving yards, and Josh was on his way to a 46 total touchdown season. Entering the 2022 NFL Draft, Howie Roseman knew he needed to get Jalen another receiver. The question was, which receiver would Philly end up with? A lot of people, myself included, mocked them Treylon Burks from Arkansas quite often, and ironically, Treylon's NFL player comparison to a lot of people was A.J. Brown. And this is where I don't think Howie gets enough credit as a general manager. Instead of drafting Treylon and hoping he can develop into a good receiver and grow with Jalen Hurts, he calls up John Robinson, the Titans general manager at the time, and says, "Hey John, here's pick 18 and pick 101 for A.J. Brown." The Titans had no intention of paying A.J., and pretty quickly, A.J. was on his way to Philly, and the best part for him and his family, a $100 million contract extension. When you're building a team, you have to take risks. And another move Howie has made over the past few years that, again, I don't think gets enough credit is for how they acquired Devontae Smith. Everyone in the world knew entering the 2021 draft that the Giants not only needed a receiver, but that they loved Devontae. And to be fair, there's a lot to like about Smitty as a football player, but you can't let everyone in the world know that's your desired pick heading into the draft. So Howie made a big move to go up from pick 12 to pick 10 directly in front of the Giants to take him. It was either move up to get him or play against him twice a year for the next 10 years. And this team is now in the Super Bowl and has 2 1,000-yard receivers because of Howie Roseman striking while the iron was hot. And one more move I want to highlight because of how under the radar it was and how seamless of a transition it was for Philly was when the Eagles drafted Dallas Goedert in the second round, despite Zach Ertz coming off of 3 straight 800-yard years. The key to being a good GM is anticipating the next move and having the next hole filled before the floodgates open and it's a glaring need. And Howie has done a terrific job with this, not only on the offensive side of the ball, but the defensive as well. There's an old saying of build through the draft and supplement through free agency, and the Eagles have done exactly that. Hassan Reddick is a player we discussed on the channel recently and how key he has been to the Eagles' success this year, and for those that may not have watched the video, he has been an absolute grand slam of a free agent signing for Philly. He had 16 sacks in 2022 and finished 10th in the NFL in total pressures with 68, and has added 12 more pressures during the 2 games in the postseason. And this will be brought up in the next few months as we dive into draft content, and there's a few players in particular in the 2023 draft that I think will become good picks over time, but may not produce right away. And it's because pass rush takes a few years to really develop and to not only master the craft, but for players to get their bodies ready to endure the type of beating it is in the trenches on every single play. Reddick quietly had 23.5 sacks in 2020 and 2021 combined, and put together his best season as a pro in 2022, in which he finished the year with 16 sacks. And what I think will benefit Reddick, and why I think this will continue to prove to be a steal for the Eagles, is the entire defensive line is great. There is so much depth and so many players that can win at the point of attack to get after the quarterback. They had 70 sacks in 2022, which far and away led the NFL, and they had 4 players have double-digit sacks. 4 players on this team had 11 or more sacks, which is utterly insane. And sure, they're going to lose Javon Hargrave in free agency this year, as they're not going to pay him 15 or 20 million per year, but this all goes back to why they are the way to build a football team. Who did the Eagles draft in the first round of the 2022 NFL Draft to not only prepare for this, but also to prepare for when Fletcher Cox either retires or takes a big step back, who is now 32 years old? Oh yeah, they drafted a 6'6", 340-pound defensive tackle in Jordan Davis. So while they have all of this going on up front, Howie was proactive and drafted truly a one-of-one player that you cannot imitate when game planning against. Oh, and because Jordan is an absolute unit of a player and a complete disruptor that will only grow as a player in the Eagles' defense, it's either leave him one-on-one with an interior offensive lineman who is outweighed by 20 pounds, or leave Hassan Reddick one-on-one on the outside. And if you guys are not aware and think Jordan Davis may be just a big fat guy in the middle who eats up space, he ran a 4.78 40 at the combine last year, which to me at least was the most impressive 40-yard dash out of any player due to his sheer size. And to go into this further of how good of a GM Howie has been over the past few years, regardless of the outcome of the Super Bowl, this team has a top 10 draft pick because Howie had the wherewithal to trade with the Saints last year and to get their 2023 first round pick, knowing they were entering the season with Jameis Winston as their starting quarterback, and knowing that their season was going to go more than likely one of two ways. Jameis was going to play like a Pro Bowler and have a year similar to what Geno Smith ended up having, or revert back to Jameis and the team would struggle. And he did, as Andy Dalton started most of the games. And if you take a look at all of the gambles, or at least big gambles, Howie has made over the past few years, they've hit. Drafting Jalen Hurts as a contingency plan in case Carson Wentz didn't work out, moving past the Giants to acquire a 1,000-yard receiver instead of having to guard that player for a decade, and giving up a first-round pick and immediately signing him to an extension in A.J. Brown to lock him up through his age 29 season. All of these have hit and paid massive dividends. And when you hit and continue to hit on first-round picks and perfectly supplement through free agency, you're going to have a team like the 2022 Philadelphia Eagles. Capitalizing on other teams getting rid of good players has also been beneficial to Philly. Darius Slay and James Bradbury are perfect examples of this, and this team is how to build around a good young quarterback. Jalen is going to get paid soon, and rightfully so, and inevitably when he makes 35, 40, or 45 million per year, yes, guys are going to leave because the Eagles will not be able to afford them. That will happen at some point. But for every team this year that will take a quarterback high, or even in 2024 for that matter, what Howie Roseman has done over the past 4 or 5 years has been amazing. And if the Eagles win the Super Bowl, there's a good chance Howie becomes a Hall of Famer as a GM. They were in a very bad situation in 2020 with the Carson Wentz saga, but they came out stronger. And the construction of this roster will be used by other NFL teams moving forward. And that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it would mean the world and help a ton. Until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.